At Summer Games Fest, we finally got details on the new Monster Hunter Wilds expansion, Ascendance. In this video, I'm going to go over the main core pieces of information we got from the trailer, and I'll be breaking down what this would mean for the future of Wilds. First and foremost, we can see there has been a time skip in-game. This will naturally have various story implications, but beyond that in terms of gameplay, I doubt anything will change. Wilds really favoured the new story angle, which left some people polarised, but I'm personally fine with it, and a time skip like this is a good way to advance it further. Of course, the brand new area was also revealed, taking place incredibly high up above the clouds, which after all makes sense being as the expansion is called Ascendance. We don't have many details on this beyond what we can visibly see, but what I do want to point out is the area is very colourful. A huge criticism of base game is how drab the world can look, especially during certain seasons. But so far, we're looking good, but the weather system may still be here to stay, and you'll find out a bit later why that is. But then a brand new monster is revealed. What's very interesting about this guy is it has a very similar style of aerial assaults that Valstrax does, for example. Now I think most people probably had the same reaction seeing the area in general as well as this guy, but this really leads me to believe Valstrax is probably coming into the game. And again, there's another point that the devs made, which I'll touch on in a bit later, that would further incline me to believe he'll be coming back. Then the thing I'm personally most excited about, the brand new mechanic for the expansion was introduced. Now this thing has officially been named the Boost Bracer. And from the developer's own description, the Boost Bracer, while active, gives each of the 14 weapons new actions and enhances actions such as attacks, combos and mobility, allowing for more versatility during hunts. In my opinion, this mechanic is the single most important thing for the expansion. Monster Hunter is a game carried by gameplay ultimately, while the story aspects are definitely important. Once you get past that sort of 8 to 12 hour experience, it's just you and the gameplay for the next 100 or 1000 hours. And from the description I just read out, the Boost Bracer seems to be very similar in style to what switch skills were in Rise. The key words were that it increases the hunter's versatility. Now the way I understand that is that it's going to give us more options, more things we can choose from. And being as it's confirmed that it adds moves and enhances existing, that screams a level of customization to me personally. One of my biggest asks for the expansion was simply to give us a range of different options for the weapons. The fast pace and kind of arcadey style Wilds introduced is definitely fun, but giving players the option to meld their weapon to their playstyle even further is definitely going to be good. As always, meta is going to play a huge part in this. People are probably going to find whatever does the most damage and stick with it, but again, having the option to change the way you play is only positive in my opinion. Where the balance is definitely going to come in is that the developers said that this is only the case while the Boost Bracer is active, meaning it's definitely going to have a cooldown similar to wirebug attacks. In my opinion, the cooldown is going to be similar to wirebugs. The more powerful the attack, the longer the cooldown, and so players are going to want to choose a good mix of different skills so that they can always have something going on. But the timing of this and the balance is going to be an incredibly important factor. If you can only use the Boost Bracer a couple of times per hunt, it's not really going to have a great deal of impact in how the game feels. For the time being, we have no further details, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. Then two big monsters were revealed. We have Lao Shenlong being revealed, who historically has been a siege monster in the previous games. Gogmazios was also sort of a siege monster in the past, but the fight we got in Wilds was very different. Either way, I think I'm safe to say the Lao Shenlong fight will be very different to what it has historically been, but it could still be a siege fight, and honestly I wouldn't be opposed to that. I was never a huge fan of the Safijiva fight, for example, or even the original Call of the Wrath, but I will say it definitely adds a bit of diversity to the gameplay and gives players options to go do something different. It helps keep things fresh and interesting in my opinion, and so fingers crossed no matter the direction they choose to take with this guy, it appears that we're going to have a very different experience to the traditional hunting experience. And then finally, everyone's favourite Elder Dragon, Kushala, was revealed. This has more implications than you may even think, and this is where I say the drab weather mechanic is going to probably still be in play, but this time around, rather than seasons controlling if your screen looks black and white or colourful, it's going to be the Elder Dragons. It looks like Kushala is in the Windsward Plains here, and it makes sense that being as it is the Wind Elder Dragon, that it's stirring up a sandstorm with it being in the area. Would it then be safe to say if a Namielle appeared, for example, it could start thunderstorming? Or the heavy torrential rain that we see in the Scarlet Forest, for example? If a Teostra spawns, does everything get even brighter? In terms of lore, Elder Dragons are capable of changing the weather, and it was even addressed in the trailer. With weather being an actual mechanic in the game, I don't think they're going to skip out on that, and they're going to use it to its fullest. And further beyond this, the developers stated that the story of Ascendance will be deeply connected to Elders, so I'm sure there's plenty more that are going to be revealed as we continue leading up to the expansion. And even though it's a bit disappointing to see the return of an Elder Dragon like Kushala, what I do want to say is that while the fight was absolutely terrible in Monster Hunter World, if you played Rise, you will know the fight was reworked and adjusted, and it was much better in that game. Just because a fight was bad in the past doesn't mean it needs to be bad in the present. While I would like to see other monsters than Kushala and Teostra, if they rework the fights and make them different enough, that's equally as okay in my book, but we'll have to see what they do. And that's it in terms of confirmed reveals. And there's definitely a lot of speculation we can start making. And as we move forward in the future, I will be making other videos talking about these factors. But with the expansion not being released until 2027, and not even having a date attached to that, we could be waiting a while for any new information. Either way, I'm going to be talking about it, so if you want to hear more as we get closer and closer to this release, I'd greatly appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with that information. But that's going to do it for now. Make sure to leave a comment if I missed anything, and also let me know your thoughts on everything that's been revealed. Thanks for watching.